So a lot of people think that humility is quiet, it's weak, it's submissive. And that might be how it comes across when people aren't used to it or aren't familiar with being humble themselves. But true humility is actually power, but under control. It's a type of confidence without the need to overtly show, hey, I'm confident. It's confidence without the arrogance factor attached to it. And so in this video, I'm going to show you and tell you how humility is almost a superpower that a lot of people never develop. And it could be one trait that changes your life. So we'll just start right here. Humility isn't thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less, right? I'm not always only thinking of me and what I want and how I can get things and what I should be doing. I already know that when I want something, I'm going to go get it. And if there's something I want done, I'm able to do it. I have the control and authority over my life. Therefore, I have no problem taking a step back and hearing you out and seeing what it is that you want. And that doesn't mean letting people walk all over you. It doesn't mean that you have to hide your talents or your gifts. And it most definitely does not mean being weak. Because let's be honest, arrogance is loud. Insecurity can be loud, but humility is usually quiet. And it's quiet because it doesn't need to prove anything. So here's a little bit of psychology behind humility. Studies show that people who are humble are usually more emotionally intelligent. They usually make better leaders and they're more respected by those around them and more open to feedback. And this is my opinion that part of the reason they're more respected by others around them is because they're more open to feedback. And since they're not quick to exert their authority or their intelligence, they're not going to rub it in your face when it comes to something that could have been done differently or better or giving an opinion. And why is this? Is because once you develop humility, you're no longer obsessed with being right or getting it right. It's okay to be wrong. Humility allows us to admit when we're wrong. And that's one of the true ways for us to grow, admitting we're wrong. Because if we're never able to admit that something we did or said or an action we took was wrong or not the best action, then we're going to be denying ourselves of the truth of how we could have been better, improved, or taken a different course of action or said something different. So if you never accept the fact you could be wrong, you'll never look for things to improve upon. Well, let's talk about this. I'm going to say that humility builds and ego destroys. So how many people do you know that could have been so much further in their career, in life, in relationships, in whatever aspect you could think of, if they were able to take advice, to apologize? They didn't make it further because they couldn't grow. They couldn't take criticism. They couldn't take being honest with other people because other people are beneath them. So I don't have to tell them what I think. That's all coming from ego. Now, how many people do you know who are super low key, always learning stuff, always working on things, and they always seem to be leveling up, but it's quietly. They quietly step out and show that they've been building something powerful. That's humility. It doesn't need the recognition for getting the job done, but it needs to know that the work is being completed. Ego is what is demanding attention, is what is demanding people see the work and not only see it, but reverence it, respect it, acknowledge it, appreciate it. All of that is the desire to have gotten something and have other people agree. Humility could want all of the same things, but isn't seeking the external validation. I'm doing these things because either I want to or I'm capable of it. And that's that. It doesn't need other people's input for it to be valid. It's not searching for a validation. So here are some signs that you're growing in your humility. For one, you don't always need to get the last word. You don't have to say the last thing. You're okay with saying, all right, and leaving it there. People will start to hate you so much. I'm sorry that I use that word, but people will be frustrated with you if they know you outwardly and openly disagree with something, but you don't go back and forth. If you just say, I disagree, and you have nothing else to say, you just take all the fuel out of the fire. But that's because you're not trying to have a fire. Like I said, ego destroys. Humility is building, right? So if I'm humble, I'll be humble enough to realize that this situation, this conversation is turning into an altercation, and we're not going to come to a peaceful resolution other than both of us being okay with the different opinions, whatever. Number two, if you ask more questions than you do give opinions or make statements, because in asking questions, we're trying to make sure we understand and not exert our understanding on other people. This is something else that I feel as if it's rubbed people the wrong way, because before I respond to what I've been given, I want to make sure that I'm understanding it. And I think it's for two reasons. Sometimes in trying to seek understanding of things, you bring clarity to it, and the clarity can show the fallacies in the situation, right? Say someone is upset with you or said something to you that you didn't appreciate, but before you get upset about it, you're like, wait, I just want to understand what just happened right here. And then you reiterate what you heard and how you took it, and they'll realize, like, I was being disrespectful. Or if somebody said that to me, I will respond because they literally hear you say back what they said to you. You feel me? And not all the times does this work. And sometimes people will double down because now that you're pointing it out, they can also see how they could be wrong, but they don't want to admit it, which again is the ego destroying, right? So true humility will allow you to, one, clarify something by asking questions, and then you'll give your take on it. So we're both addressing the same thing. And a lot of the times disagreement happens because of misunderstanding. And then people don't seek to understand. They just want to either get their point across or defend their point or defend how they were right or their other person is wrong. But if you have to defend something, it's because you're being opposed. Once you come into communion, community, relationship, relation is to relate. Relationship is to relate and then take a journey somewhere, right? A ship moves, it travels, right? So part of this traveling is growing. So once you come into communication, communion, and relationship with somebody with the intention of growing, then there's less to defend because you're more open to what the other person has to say in order to grow together. That's how I take it. Anyway, moving on. Another way that you know you're growing in humility is you don't confuse value with status. Someone's worth isn't necessarily determined by their social standing, their economic standing, right? Sometimes the most valuable part to a team or a puzzle can be the person that no one expected. And it's partially, say you have a group of people who are well trained at what it is that they do, but they all have poor dispositions or they all have emotional states that are easily thrown or swayed, right? And then you have two super cheery, bright people who aren't necessarily as technically trained, but they're well better versed at emotional stability and positivity and optimism. If you have five people who all work together and they all have that same super intellectual mindset and horrible emotional stability, I promise you that workplace is going to be less comfortable for all of them than it would be if there were two or three people who thought that way and two or three people who were balls of sunshine, just because they're going to bring another aspect to the situation. And I just say this to say the value of what someone brings isn't always in the money that they have or in the status that they carry, right? Because people will step aside and let celebrities get ahead of them. Or just let's look at this. We place a value on celebrities because of the monetary status that they've accomplished. But how many celebrities have shown that their status monetarily does not speak to their value as a person in humanity and just being a good person? It comes to treating people well, the way you would want to be treated, being upright in business, right? You can have someone who works at a corner store bakery be more fair, just, and equal than someone who works in private banking, right? And just because of the monetary status of the person who works in high banking, they're going to possibly receive better treatment from people than the person who's the most fair, upright, just, and friendly person you've ever met in your life. Once you start to really become humble, you treat the janitor the same way you treat the head of the company, because it's not about what you have. It's about who you are. at the core of you and at the core of all of us, we were created by the Most High. We were created by God, right? We were created in His image. Therefore, we're all of the same status, essentially. We've just placed monikers and things around us to give the illusion of difference. This is one of my favorite ones. You stop performing for people. That's how you know you've developed true humility. Or you don't have to put on the facade or try and act a certain way because you think people are going to like it or people are going to rock with you more or be more drawn to this version of you. You show up as the person that you are wholeheartedly, and you're not worried about it because you know you're going to show up as a good person. If you're a good person, some people, they don't really care about being perceived as a good or bad person as long as what they want is accomplished. So if you're a good person and you've developed humility, but I'll also say that a lot of the time, the people who don't care about how they're being perceived at all because they're not worried about being a good person probably aren't too worried about being humble either. And this is actually probably the biggest one, though. You're more focused on getting it better than getting it right. You're more focused on improving and not just improving yourself, but improving the life that you live, your body, the situations around you, the way you interact with people. Like, oh, wow, I think that I really short with people sometimes and I'm not always friendly. Maybe I should do better, right? You don't have to. Nobody's telling you to, but you're thinking about improving the relations and situationships around you. Situationships, that's crazy. But the situations around you, just talking to people on an everyday basis, right? Or just being more mindful because sometimes we start being short with our words because we're short in our attention span and we don't realize that we're being snippy and sharp with people and possibly rude, right? So once you start being focused on getting better as opposed to being impressive or getting it right, then everything just starts to work in your favor. Like when you want to impress people, you have to always be working harder than you have to. I mean, you always have to be working harder than necessary, I think, if you want to be impressive. Because if you're already very good at something or doing a good job, and now you put on, I have to impress people, you're adding work to your brain. Like people might already be impressed, but now you're trying to one up what you're already doing. And yes, it's cool to be better. That's what I'm literally saying. Be better, but not impressive. So look around you and just be like, oh, the little things can become, I might just have to cut this out because it's like, I understand it more than I can put it into words. And I feel as if I'm starting to say things that are contradicting of one another, right? But the more focused you are on getting better than being impressive, the more humble that you know that you're getting. I just can't talk all of a sudden. Sheesh. But once you focus on getting better over being impressive, you're going to start to be impressive because you're going to always be improving, right? Sometimes people get so caught up on being impressive that they don't even realize all of the baby steps are what is building the ground and the platform for you to put the impressive parts on. Because if you start looking and grabbing, I want the biggest and I want the heaviest, I want the fastest and I want the most expensive, and then you set it on a platform and you're just like, all right, how do I plug any of this up? How do I control it? How do I hold it steady? You're not going to get very far very fast because it's too heavy for you to even carry. The stage might fall through. Your little cart or trolley that you put it all in and on is probably going to fall through. Now, if you went and said, all right, let me learn the basis of this. How does this thing work? What is it that I'm supposed to know? What is it that I'm supposed to get? How are these pieces supposed to work together? And then you start acquiring pieces as you go along. You're like, all right, I got it done with this. Now I need a better one. And you build towards having the highest one and the most expensive one and the fastest one and the best one. Your platform is already built on all the knowledge of execution, all the past experiences, and the past equipment. Sometimes you go buy super high end gear and realize you need a connective port or something that's $5 or $10. Where if you started off with the $50 one, used the $50 one, and then went and bought the $150 one, you would have already had them both. You feel me? But it's like, I'm gonna just go straight to the biggest and baddest and spend 150 off rip. Like, I don't know. I understand in one aspect in regard, I'm thinking about in the aspect of like business and stuff like that. And different careers where people will go and buy the biggest, baddest, quickest, fastest equipment and not even have any customers or not even have a place to house it. Whereas like you're doing yourself a disservice by trying to be in such a rush. Start off small and build up as you go. Once you know that you know how to work it, you know how to use it, and you know how to implement it, then you go and get better ones and improve. And again, a part of this comes from ego and wanting to show that you have the best, the biggest, the fastest, and to impress people, as opposed to show people why this is a quality thing. So, like I said earlier, true humility is going to show up no matter what or who is around. It's how you treat the janitor and how you treat the CEO. No one has to be paying attention for you to have the integrity to treat both of them as human beings and with respect, right? And true humility is going to show up when nobody is watching. It's also, true humility also shows in the way that you take criticism, the way that you're able to acknowledge your faults, right? Because if you're truly humble, you're going to accept the fact that you're not always right and that you could be wrong or you could have wronged somebody. It's going to show up in the way you carry yourself when you're winning, when you're losing, and how you bounce back afterward, right? Because if someone was super egotistical and prideful and then they have a big fall, they're probably going to feel bad, or not feel bad, but be ashamed and embarrassed because they talked a good game and couldn't back it up. Whereas if someone showed up humble, they gave it all that they had, and then they fail, people are going to be more like, good luck, better luck next time. As opposed to if you were, hey, I'm the biggest, the baddest, the best, and all y'all. And then you don't go anywhere. They're like, yeah, you said, fuck all us. You got it yourself. You the biggest, the baddest, and the best. As opposed to along the way, you're saying, hey, yeah, I'm working towards X, Y, Z. You know anything? You know anybody? You know any way to help me? Yeah, I'm trying to get better. I've been doing X, Y, Z to improve upon X, Y, Z. They're like, oh, all right. He's open to suggestions. He's actually looking for feedback, and he's not trying to throw it in people's faces. People are more likely to help the person who's not throwing it in their face, right? And so when you're truly being humble, you stop trying to look valuable and you start worrying about the actual value. You become valuable because you're not trying to look valuable or fake valuable. You're trying to learn things to be better. And once you start to improve yourself, your work, your skills, there's going to be value that innately comes with that. So, real talk, the world does not need more overly confident, egotistical bastards, right? It does not need more fake confidence. It needs more men who live in their truth and help others to do the same. People who lead with grace, with dignity. People who stay grounded even as they elevate. They don't get a big head. They don't get an overly inflated ego. That's a rarity these days. But if you can master that, you can become unstoppable because you'll be grounded and rooted in who you are, and you won't be pushed and swayed and pulled by other people's hearsay, she say, he say, or opinions, their attitudes, their negativities, because you're not seeking outside validation. You're doing a good job and you're just trying to do a better job. So any way that I can improve on what it is that I'm doing, so be it. And if at any point in time we come to a head, we come to a standstill, we come to a standoff, I'm okay with stepping down in order to bystep and continue with my journey and my race, right? We don't have to be competing and we don't have to both agree. We just have to keep growing. And for me, I'd prefer to do that in an amicable way and a mutually agreed upon way. But if that can't happen, so be it. I don't need to make you see it like me. I don't have to be the winner. And this is another thing. I've talked to so many people who feel like people have gotten over on them or they won because they didn't get the last word or they didn't get to prove the other person's point wrong or to show like, why? Who cares? Like, as long as my life continues and I know I'm leveling up to where it is I want to go with my life, I could care less what's going on, but like, I don't have to prove your point. I don't have to prove you're right. I don't have to prove you're wrong. I just have to be the best version of me every day and continue to love my Lord, God, and Savior. So, with that being said, if anything I just said hit home, go ahead, hit the like button, drop a prayer hand emoji in the chat because we gonna pray for these stickers. You feel me? Hope that everybody get it and just take a step back from themselves and realize none of us are as great or grandiose as we'd like to be or think when it actually comes down to it, because we all still have our own fallacies. We all still have our own things that we're working through dealing with in order to be more honest, transparent people and better in relationship with people, whether that's friendship, whether that's romantic partnership, whether that's even just being a good parent. How many of us have had our parents call us in the middle of the day while we're at work or something, and instead of being like, oh, hey, thanks for the call, or like, I'm busy, let me talk with, Look, I just know there's been times where my mom's called me and I've definitely been short or just like cut off the conversation because of where I was or what I was doing. When she either just wanted to say she loved me, wanted to hear my voice, or actually just had a question for me. And it's not that I was mad at her. It's just I took for granted the fact that she was calling me while I was doing something. And your mom's not going to be here forever. Your parents aren't going to be here forever. Just simply taking 10 minutes to talk to them could be their whole day. And I know when I got to college, I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about or talking to my mom at all my freshman year. And now that I'm older, she mentioned it, and I'm like, wow, that was kind of heartless of me to just not give her a quick 10-minute check in. And I'm not gonna say there are a lot of people who aren't the opposite. I know it's plenty of people who talk to their parents on a regular basis, but this is just one way I could think where if I was being more humble as a younger person, 18, 19, 20, I would have just taken into account that she just wanted to know I was okay and she missed me. But I'm just like, why are you bothering me? Like, I'm an adult. I got it. I'm okay. I'm fine. Yes, I ate. Like, let me be a man. Ego. So let me know what it is that you're working on to grow. Mine is just being slower and taking more time to take in what other people are dealing with and thinking and going through because I live in my head and I'm thinking about 50 things all the time. And I'm always jumping from one thing to the next. And I know this. So if anybody ever says I was rude, I was short, I was neglectful, I stop and I reflect. And if you really about that self mastery life, go ahead, subscribe to the channel, dropping a new video at least once a week, speaking on how to become a better version of yourself so that we can improve the world around us and the relationships with those around us.